Talk Radio 77 WABC. It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noah Layden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noah
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Monday, February 24th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds today. The high going to be 49. We like that. Tonight and overnight, cloudy, low 40. And then Tuesday, even warmer, mostly cloudy, high 53 if you are walking out the door with us right now. 34 in cloudy in Oyster Bay out on Long Island. 34 and partly cloudy in Cresco over in New Jersey. And it's 35 and clear right outside our Midtown studios.
The top 5 at 5.
Prayers for the Pope chanted around the world. Mayor Adams holds on as New Yorkers call on him to resign. A scare in the air for New Yorkers heading to India. Will the Israel-Hamas ceasefire hold up? Can President Trump do a better job running the post office? All right, let's get into it. Let's start in the Vatican in Rome. Pope Francis in critical condition after suffering respiratory crisis. Correspondent Claudio Lavaggia has details from the Vatican's latest update that took place yesterday.
He had to receive a blood transfusion because of anemia, and also he had to receive oxygen for longer than previous days because of an asthmatic crisis there.
Now, crowds have gathered outside the hospital in Rome where the Pope has been treated for more than a week with this complex lung infection. Doctors said he will need to stay in the hospital for a while longer as he battles pneumonia. More from this correspondent Lavaggia, who has been in Rome all week.
The Vatican is saying that the Pope's condition continues to be critical, that today his situation has worsened.
And the faithful have been outside this hospital chanting prayers, both in St. Peter's Square and outside the hospital.
I came here for the Pope, and it's a symbolic time. And I think that all the prayers and the support that he can get, we must support the Pope at this moment.
So the latest update we have is from yesterday. We're waiting for one this morning, but the 88-year-old Pope was alert, they said, had rested after receiving blood transfusions following this respiratory crisis. He was admitted to a Gemelli Hospital in Rome. That was back on February 14th, so he's been there for a while after he was having difficulty breathing, diagnosed with pneumonia in both lungs.
The voice of the Pope is so important at the moment. The world is full of hatred, and he's a voice of love. He echoes what Christ told us 2,000 years ago. So we need him a lot.
Yeah, so yesterday his condition was upgraded to critical, and he was given supplemental oxygen. Later in the hour, we'll hear from New Yorkers who were at St. Patrick's Cathedral in Midtown yesterday praying for the Pope. Governor Hochul defending her decision not to remove Mayor Adams. Hochul says that despite the outrage over the Justice Department ordering the dismissal of Adams' corruption charges, she doesn't want to meddle in a Democratic election.
But I will always stand on the fact that we are a nation of laws. And one individual, the governor of New York, should not use her voice and her will to override the will of the voters. So
instead of using her power to remove a sitting mayor, the governor says she would rather allow this year's mayoral election to play out.
We have an election in a few months in a primary. I'm going to let the voters decide, but I'm also going to be very cognizant. I need to keep an eye on this situation.
And she says she'll try to resist any attempt by President Trump's White House to influence politics here in the city.
We are not allowing the Trump administration to interfere in the operations of our city.
5:04, a 61-year-old prison inmate in upstate New York has died amid a wildcat strike by corrections officers there.
Jonathan Grant was found unresponsive in his cell early Saturday at the maximum security prison in Auburn, New York. The Daily News reports he'd been in prison since August of 2011 on a 34 to 40-year sentence for a rape and burglary conviction in Brooklyn. Officials say a member of the National Guard, which had been sent to the prison because of the strike, as well as medical staff and paramedics, tried without success to revive him. The paper says the cause and circumstances of Grant's death are unknown and under investigation. Larry Kofsky, NBC News Radio.
Some real fears for flyers who are heading to India. An American Airlines flight out of Kennedy was diverted to Rome yesterday over a possible security issue. This was American Airlines Flight 292. Had departed Kennedy International, was heading to Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi when they got word that there might be a bomb on board this flight. An Italian Air Force fighter jet escorted the aircraft to Leonardo da Vinci Rome's airport, where it landed safely. The security personnel there raced onto this plane, did not find anything. They say the bomb threat was unfounded. Indian authorities, though, insisted that the aircraft be doubly checked out prior to landing in New Delhi. Good news is there was nothing wrong with this plane. These flyers were able to make their way to India. Nobody was injured. President Trump's special envoy to the Middle East believes the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas will reach its planned second phase, which is about to start. Steve Witkoff says an extension of phase one is needed, but he's confident the hostage deal in the next phase can be reached.
We have to get an extension of phase one, and so I'll be going into the region this week, probably Wednesday, to negotiate that.
Now, over the weekend, you might have been watching, is Hamas released 6 hostages. Israel was set to release hundreds of Palestinian prisoners in exchange for those hostages, but they held that up for a while over the weekend.
I believe the prime minister is well motivated. He wants to see hostages released. That's for sure.
Yeah, Witkoff believes Prime Minister Netanyahu will keep this ceasefire in place. Now, there's a great debate going on within Israel about whether they should continue the war or continue the ceasefire.
He's got a red line, and he said what the red line is, and that is that Hamas cannot be involved in a governing body when this thing is resolved.
Yeah, so we'll have to watch that play out. Back home at the White House, maybe you saw this at the end of last week, President Trump talking about thinking of merging the post office into the Commerce Department to fix what's wrong over at the post office.
We're losing so much money with the Postal Service, and we don't want to lose that kind of money.
I mean, it seems every White House has tried to fix what's wrong with the post office. No one has been very successful at it, but maybe combining it with the Commerce Department is the answer.
He'll be looking at it, and we think we can turn it around, but it is the Postal Service. I mean, we're leaving the Postal Service.
Maybe you're like me. I can't remember the last time I looked at my mailbox, so maybe that's part of the problem. WABC News Time 508. Let's go back overseas. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's willing to resign in exchange for peace or a NATO membership.
The Ukrainian president made the offer at a news conference Sunday, saying, quote, "If it is peace for Ukraine and you really want me to leave my post, I'm ready." Zelensky also said he would also trade his position for immediate NATO membership if it means the safety of his country. This follows public disputes with President Trump last week after Trump implied Zelensky was responsible for Ukraine's war with Russia and called the Ukrainian leader a dictator. Zelensky also insisted that he does not intend to stay in power for decades. I'm Lisa Carton.
French President Emmanuel Macron will meet with President Trump at the White House today. He'll be the first European leader to travel to the U.S. for a White House visit since Trump took office again last month. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer set to arrive Thursday for a meeting with Trump as well. And that coming after President Trump making these comments about Russian President Putin. Vladimir Putin is a dictator. When asked by a reporter Friday if he thought Putin was a dictator, Trump said he thought President Putin and Zelensky have got to get together, and we have to stop killing millions of people.
I want to see a ceasefire, and I want to get the deal done. I think we have a chance to get the deal done.
Yeah, so earlier in the week, Trump had suggested Ukraine's responsible for Russia's invasion, and that's what's got these two world leaders from France and from the UK talking. They met too. Now they're going to meet with the president.
I think that President Putin and President Zelensky are going to have to get together because you know what? We want to stop killing millions of people.
No doubt that'll be one of the key topics when the French president arrives at the White House later today. Meanwhile, over the weekend, it was the CPAC conference, the Conservative Political Action Conference, happens in Maryland every year. President Trump, the keynote speaker, he says his administration is off to a great start.
Together, we've achieved more in 4 weeks than most administrations achieve in 4 years. We made a lot of progress.
The president speaking about declaring the national emergency at the southern border on his first day in office.
No, I haven't said that name in a while. Kamala. I'll bet nobody knows her last name.
He says the administration has put America first, which he said was his campaign promise. 511, a former Army Chief of Staff says President Trump's firing of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has been destabilizing to the U.S. military. Retired General George Casey warned of the danger of the sudden senior personnel changes.
When you remove so many senior leaders, especially without justifying and giving due cause, it creates huge uncertainty in the ranks.
Casey says military leaders should not be punished for following orders given by a previous White House.
That's extremely destabilizing at a time that's a lot going on domestically and a lot going on abroad.
General Charles Brown Jr., he was fired Friday night in a move critics say was an effort by the White House to get rid of diversity initiatives in the U.S. military. In an interview with ABC this week, the General George Casey, the former one, said sudden personnel changes does create serious uncertainty among those in the lower ranks. 512 out to Los Angeles, where the DA there rejecting a bid by the Menendez brothers to challenge their murder convictions. Lots of talk about this over the weekend. Eric and Lyle Menendez both serving life sentences for the killing of their parents back in 1999, which they say was in self-defense after years of abuse.
What we found out is that Eric and Lyle Menendez had told 5 different versions of the events of what had happened.
Now, the brothers requested a retrial based on new evidence, but over the weekend, the DA, Nathan Hochul, said evidence didn't meet the standards required for a new trial.
Sexual abuse in this situation, while it may have been a motivation for Eric and Lyle to do what they did, does not constitute self-defense.
The DA Hochul says his office still reviewing the request in full, and a 2-day hearing on the matter is scheduled for sometime in March. President Trump says immigration agents will now work out of emptied offices of the U.S. Agency for International Development. Correspondent Jim Forbes has more.
During Trump's speech at the Conservative Political Action Conference on Saturday, Trump called USAID, quote, a left-wing scam and applauded its dismantling. He also said the office space will now be used by Customs and Border Patrol agents. The announcement comes after a federal judge approved the dismantling of USAID and the firing of thousands of employees. I'm Jim Forbes.
WABC News Time 513. The White House planning a new strategy to combat soaring egg prices. Instead of wiping out whole flocks of chickens due to a single case of bird flu, it would be more targeted.
In the last year, we killed 70 million chickens because of suspected bird flu. Not because they were sick, because they were in a house that had sick birds.
That's the agricultural commissioner out of Texas. His name is Sid Miller. He says we need to trust the farmers raising the chickens.
We had one house here in Texas that had to start 1,500,000 birds because a few of the birds had bird flu.
And those farmers say they know what's best for their flock. It comes as news broke last week that the USDA accidentally fired several people who had been working to contain the bird flu outbreak.
Let's just isolate that house and see how many birds die, and the ones that live will have immunity.
All right, 514, the measles outbreak in Texas has exploded to at least over 100 cases now. That's a 55% increase just in the last week.
9 out of 10 people who are unvaccinated who are exposed to it will get measles.
That's Lara Anton with the Texas Health and Human Services Commission, says the outbreak hitting part of the state that has the lowest vaccination rate. Most of the people getting it are kids, but there are adults getting measles as well.
It is infectious 4 days before you get that rash.
Yeah, it is one of the more infectious diseases you can get. They're urging people in Texas to get the vaccine now, and even people who did get the vaccine between 1959 and 1968, they say that vaccine may have been the least effective of all the measles vaccines that were rolled out, and so they're suggesting maybe you should go back in and get another one, or at least consult your doctor about doing so.
And so they can be out in public, at school, at stores, wherever, exposing other people to measles.
Yeah, that's the real fear, is these kids are out, don't even know they have the measles, and are transmitting it to others. But now well over 100 people in Texas have the measles from this latest outbreak. All right, 5:15. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Happy Monday. Good morning, Justin Ellick.
Happy Monday. Good morning, and welcome back to you, Noam Hall-Ledden. We missed you there big time, buddy. Start here on the hardwood in Boston. The Knicks fell 118-105 to the Eastern Conference second place Boston Celtics, dropping 0-3 against Boston this season. Karl Anthony Towns led New York with 24, and Jalen Brunson had 22. The Knicks had whittled a 77-50 third-quarter deficit down to 95-89 on Mikal Bridges' driving basket early in the final quarter before the Celtics went on a 10-0 spree to take control. Coming off a 37-point loss at the Eastern Conference leading Cleveland Cavaliers on Friday, the Knicks fell behind by 27 after Brown and Tatum hit consecutive threes just 20 seconds apart early in the third quarter. Josh Hart returned after missing the past 2 games with a sore right knee. He offered some solid defense and offensive production with 20 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists on the night. Boston is averaging 127 points at its 3 wins versus New York. Up next for the Knicks, they'll host the Philadelphia 76ers come Wednesday. Looking ahead to local NBA action tonight, the Nets return to the floor on the road in Washington, getting set for a 7 p.m. tip-off against the Wizards. On the collegiate hardwood, St. John's hammered UConn at home, beating the Huskies 89-75. Kadary Richmond and Zuby Ejiofor led the contest in scoring with 18 apiece, helping the Big East first-place Red Storm improve to 24-4 overall on the year and 15-2 in conference. Coming up next for St. John's, a road date with Butler on Wednesday night. To the NHL and the ice in Pittsburgh, where Adam Fox scored the go-ahead goal at just about the 11-minute mark of the third period. JT Miller had 2 goals, and the Rangers rallied to beat the Penguins 5-3. Will Cooley scored on the power play, and Jimmy Vesey, added his 100th goal, NHL goal for the Rangers. Igor Shesterkin made 30 saves. Miller scored in the first period and added a late empty net goal. Coming up next for the Blue Shirts, a visit to Elmont to face off the Islanders tomorrow night. Speaking of those Islanders, they lost a tight 1-4-3 to the visiting Dallas Stars last night. Jean-Gabriel Pageau appeared to tie it for New York in the closing minutes, but the referee ruled Pierre Engvall interfered with Ottinger, and the goal was disallowed. Engvall, Palmieri, and Duclair scored for New York, and Sorokin made 25 saves, but the Islanders fell in their first game following the break. Finally, in Nashville, Nico Dawes made 29 saves to record his first NHL shutout, and the Devils dominated the Predators to the tune of a 5-0 victory. Dougie Hamilton had a goal and an assist. Palat, Casey, Neeson, and Tatar also scored for the Devils, winners of 2 of 3. Up next for the Devs, they'll visit the Colorado Avalanche on Wednesday night. That's your Sports Gnome, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:20 was a wild end to the week on Wall Street on Friday. It had its worst day of the year, so all eyes will be on Wall Street this morning.
The Dow dropped over 700 points on Friday. A steep drop in consumer sentiment is being blamed for the sell-off, along with other data that raise new concerns about the economy, like lingering inflation. At the closing bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 748 points. The Nasdaq dropped 438 points. The S&P 500 lost 104 points. I'm Michael Kastner.
5:20, the fallout from the wildfires in California. It continues over the weekend. Mayor Karen Bass gave the Los Angeles Fire Chief, Kristen Crowley, the boot. She's out of a job.
Acting in the best interest of Los Angeles public safety and for the operations of the Los Angeles Fire Department, I just met with Chief Crowley and removed her as fire chief.
Yeah, when you go deep into this story, which I did over the weekend, the fire chief says 1,000 firefighters that could have been on duty the morning the fires broke out were instead sent home on Chief Crowley's watch. Just some of the reasons she was told she no longer has a gig.
A necessary step to the investigation was the president of the Fire Commission telling Chief Crowley to do an after-action report on the fires. The fire chief refused. We all know that 1,000 firefighters that could have been on duty on the morning the fires broke were instead sent home on Chief Crowley's watch.
Now, Chief Kristen Crowley did not go quietly. She spoke out over the weekend after being fired.
In a statement, Crowley said, quote, "As the fire chief, I base my actions and decisions on taking care of our firefighters so they could take care of our communities." According to NBC Los Angeles, tensions between the two leaders arose in the wake of the Los Angeles Fire Department's response to last month's historic fires. If Crowley chooses to appeal her firing, she will need votes from 10 of the city council's 15 members. I'm Jim Forbes.
WABC News Time 522. A pair of popular online gaming and messaging platforms, both based in California, being sued by a 13-year-old boy who alleges abuse. Lawyers for the child say there are lack of protections on both Discord and Roblox, allowing predators to stalk their prey.
They are hunting grounds for child predators, hunting grounds for pedophiles.
That's attorney Alexandra Walsh. She says her client was victimized by a predator who extorted him for nude photos. Boy, we've heard this story way too often. That man, she says, is responsible for the sexual exploitation of more than 20 other children. Now, this is for people who are playing just online gaming with people, most times total strangers. But in this case, this individual extorting kids for photos.
And they hide that truth from parents who are trying, like all of us, to make good decisions from our kids.
Yeah, and they say those platforms should do a better job protecting the kids. Walsh says her client wants to send a warning to others that these sites are not safe for kids.
We allege that they have misrepresented the safety of their platforms.
Roblox, which is based in the Bay Area near San Francisco, releasing a statement over the weekend saying they take the safety of their community very seriously. But the attorney, Walsh, says that the lax security has turned Roblox and Discord into hunting grounds for pedophiles. WABC News Time 523. Who knew Hooters was even still around? I mean, I can't remember the last time I passed one. There used to be one in Midtown. Remember that? Well, apparently they're reportedly preparing for a filing of bankruptcy to keep some of their restaurants open.
That's according to Bloomberg, which said Hooters is working with creditors on a restructuring plan. The outlet also reports the restaurant chain is working with a law firm to ready the filing, and the court process could start in the next 2 months. Hooters has been dealing with a decline in customers and closed about 40 locations last year. The first location opened in 1983 in Clearwater, Florida. I'm Michael Kastner.
One McDonald's in Brooklyn trying a new approach now to combat crime there.
At the Mickey D's on Nostrand and Flatbush, you now need to prove you're over the age of 20 if you want to get inside. Some people are loving it, with one person on social media saying it is much more peaceful.
And they got the kids waiting outside. Like, it's crazy. Stop messing up people's place.
Those underage need to have a parent chaperone. It comes after a group of teens in ski masks caused chaos last week, attacking a security guard and breaking a glass door. So far this year, there have been 29 calls to 911 from that McDonald's. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
The notorious B.I.G.'s mother passed away at the age of 78. Valletta Wallace, in hospice care, died of natural causes in Pennsylvania. She was mentioned in several of her son's songs. She raised him as a single mom, you'll remember, working as a preschool teacher. After the B.I.G.'s death in 1997, she kept his legacy alive and maintained his estate. Tate McRae's new album, So Close to What Is Here, is out. The project, released over the weekend, includes previously released singles Two Hands, Sports Car, and It's Okay, I'm Okay. It also features a collaboration with McRae's boyfriend, the kid Leroy. McRae is set to kick off the Miss Progressive Tour next month in Mexico City. Today's National Day is for snackers. Bree Tennis with what you'll be reaching for today to celebrate this holiday that is today.
Today we celebrate the humble tortilla chip, the sturdy base of chips and salsa. We've been eating the crunchy nuggets of flour and corn since the 40s. Brought to the masses by a tortilla factory in L.A. that cut unsellable, misshaped tortillas into triangles and tossed them in the fryer. So today, thank the Carranza family for creating a food based on scraps. We eat 230 million of them every year, but watch it, they are not low-cal, especially with toppings. I'm Bree Tennis.
The trading week, it kicks off with this morning's opening bell after stocks tanked Friday and the week skidded to a close on Wall Street. The downturn followed a steep drop in consumer sentiment coupled with other data that raised new concerns about the state of the economy. At the closing bell on Friday, the Dow fell 748 points. The S&P 500 lost 104. The NASDAQ dropped 438 points.
Talk Radio 77 WABC. It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me. Good morning. It is Monday, February 24th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds. Today's going to be nice. High 49 after all that cold weather. We deserve this. Tonight and overnight, cloudy, low 40, and then Tuesday even warmer. Cloudy, high 53. If you're walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are, it's 34 and cloudy in Oyster Bay out on Long Island. It is 33 and partly cloudy in Cresskill over New Jersey. And it is 35 and some clouds right outside our Midtown studios. We'll start this half hour right here in the city. A group marching from Washington Square Park to City Hall over the weekend demanding Governor Hochul remove Mayor Adams from office. Instead of using her power to remove Adams from office, Hochul has proposed new rules that would affect the way he governs the city. Those at the rally say that's just not enough.
I believe that Adams is an embarrassment as a mayor. We need a strong mayor. We have a lot of problems in New York City, and we need someone who will stand up for us to the federal government.
Now, the rally comes just 2 days after a federal judge stopped short of dismissing Adams' criminal trial, instead ruling it was indefinitely adjourned. Judge Ho appointing an independent attorney to argue against the DOJ's motion to dismiss the case against Mayor Adams. Lawyers for the mayor continuing to push for the case to be dismissed, arguing the Department of Justice moved to toss the case because of the weakness of the evidence. But New Yorkers at this rally over the weekend say they no longer trust the mayor.
We need the governor to actually use her authority and her power to deliver in representing all New Yorkers and removing him, because he was elected again to represent New York City residents, not Donald Trump.
No, the mayor has been consistent in saying that the city should cooperate with ICE to deport migrants accused of violent crimes, but that cooperation has its limits, and that in their meeting, he says he and the border czar, Tom Homan, understood that. But a lot of the people at this rally, they're angry that the mayor's cooperating at all with the White House.
Eric Adams has traded immigrant New Yorkers to save himself.
Now, of course, the race for mayor has got a whole lot more interesting. So many candidates jumping in. We're waiting for Governor Cuomo to throw his hat into the mayoral race. Some say it could come this week. The Democratic pool for the mayor is filling up, but many voters are not ruling out a Cuomo comeback. There are some New Yorkers who say they'd welcome him jumping into the race.
I thought he did pretty well, I'll put it that way.
I'm not sure, because he got some problems when he was governor.
He did a pretty good job during the pandemic.
I think it will be great.
I like Cuomo. He tells it like it is, and I think he's got some fans in New York.
So several independent polls reveal New Yorkers think highly of Cuomo, while current Mayor Adams, who has said he plans to run again, polls poorly among those same group of Democrats. The mayoral election, of course, will be held this November, but you have the primaries that'll be take place in June. And a lot of New Yorkers say they're not willing to give Mayor Adams a second chance after all that's happened over the last years.
I think he's corrupt.
He's not looking out for the people.
Adams has been compromised.
No doubt it'll be a fascinating race to watch. And, of course, keep it here, 77 WABC for all of that. 5:36, the NYPD, now part of a nationwide manhunt for a suspect that dresses the part.
Police say the man they're looking for is Yonat Candia. Investigators said the man dresses as a handyman, delivery person, even a sports fan, and has acted his way into people's homes while the unsuspecting victims are still inside.
So far, we have records of him in Los Angeles, Chicago, New York City, and Canada as well. And when he gets caught with the people present at home, he still tries to talk his way out of it as if he is a plumber or some sort of worker.
Candia has allegedly gotten away with over $1.6 million in cash and jewelry and over 25 separate heists from coast to coast. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
WABC News Time, 5:38. Men began moving in last night to a new migrant shelter in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx. The shelter, it's on the corner of East 141st Street and Bruckner Boulevard. It has the capacity to house about 2,000 people. Now, people in the neighborhood, they're not happy about this. There were window shades drawn on the upper floors as part of the first floor appeared to still be under renovation as they were moving these guys in last night. Another part of the first floor where the men were entering Sunday holds a security checkpoint, and there are metal detectors for everybody who walks in and out of the shelter. It's the center of a lot of controversy in this neighborhood where they say they take on too much of this, whether it be a homeless shelter or a shelter for migrants.
Not that I don't want nobody having nowhere to live. It's the location where you're putting them.
Now, the movement of the men into that shelter in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx comes after Mayor Adams' office announced a total of 46 migrant shelters will be closed by June. So people in this neighborhood say, well, if that's the case, why are you setting up a new one in our neighborhood?
It's the Bronx. It's over here now. You just changed the location. Because it seems like everything that you're closing down that you don't think should be somewhere, you're putting it here. And it's not fair, really.
Now, we reached out to the Bronx Borough President's office to find out why they agreed to let the shelter open up after all these other shelters are closing, and we did not hear back. Here in the city yesterday, especially at St. Patrick's Cathedral, but of course at churches and parishes all over the tri-state, there were lots of prayers for Pope Francis, who remains in critical condition, has respiratory crisis, as they called it, from pneumonia. The Pope was given 2 units of concentrated red blood cells over the weekend. Doctors say this means his low platelets are unchanged, but there are signs apparently of decreased kidney function on some blood tests. Now, we haven't seen the Pope since February 14th, since he entered the hospital. At St. Patrick's yesterday in Midtown, lots of well wishes from parishioners there.
Very vulnerable, but you know what? The human experience is a vulnerable experience, and we don't know. We're all time-stamped.
Yeah, so the Pope has been hospitalized at Rome's Gemelli Hospital since February 14th following the bout of bronchitis that apparently has turned into pneumonia now. Cardinal Timothy Dolan says he's praying for the Pope as well.
I was part of the conclave that elected him. I've gotten to know him, and so I worry about him as I would my own father, because he is our Holy Father.
Watching on as parishioners at St. Patrick's Cathedral, and again, I'm sure at parishes, churches across the tri-state, were lighting candles for the Pope yesterday.
The way that he speaks and the kindness that he generates and his love for kids is something that's really impactful.
The pontiff diagnosed with pneumonia on Tuesday, that according to the Vatican. Apart from his medical team and his security detail, the Pope has not had any visitors except for a couple of close aides. 5:41, 3 people killed, 2 others injured after a boat overturned on Staten Island yesterday. This happened around noon yesterday in the Ambrosi Channel between Staten Island and Sandy Hook in the Rockaway Peninsula. The boat was not close to shore at the time. The wife of one of the people killed in this boat accident, which we don't have a whole lot of details about, by the way, said she had been in touch with her husband earlier in the day, and he had gone out early with friends to go fishing.
He told me last night he go fishing, one of the people. So I'm not canceled, but I see why you go over there. It's not time, the weather, you know.
The Coast Guard and police units found 5 people in distress, took 3 of them to the Coast Guard station in Sandy Hook. Another 2 were airlifted to Staten Island University Hospital, and one of them was this woman's husband who passed away.
10 o'clock in the morning, I call him. I say, everything okay? He say, oh, it's a lot of wind. Oh, everything is dangerous. I say, thank God you're not bringing my daughter. Go the time. She go with him. He said, no, it's far away, like 25 miles. So, and then disappear.
Yeah, there's no word on the victims' names or ages or what brought them out on the water on a mild but still chilly February day. The water of the lower New York Bay is still really cold, and being in the water could put you at risk for hypothermia. But again, we don't have all the details what overturned this, but I imagine we'll hear more when they hold a press conference a little bit later today. 5:43, the tough commutes for Path riders in Hoboken, they're about to come to an end.
Path's Hoboken Terminal is scheduled to reopen at 5 o'clock Tuesday morning following a nearly month-long closure. Crews have been busy replacing tracks, fixing platforms, and replacing 4 old staircases that were original to the station. The reopening comes just in time for the 117th anniversary of the station's opening on Wednesday. Larry Kofsky, NBC News Radio.
543, let's go out to Long Island. The owner of an animal sanctuary in Manorville denying accusations that animals are being neglected there. Richard DeVoe, he's the owner of the Double D Bar and Ranch, and has been charged with more than 100 charges of animal neglect. He says none of that's true.
I didn't do anything wrong. I had people come in, oh, I want to help. No, they don't want to help. They want to do everything but help.
More than 100 animals, which include horses, ducks, geese, chickens, other animals removed by rescuers. Authorities say some of the animals were found dead, others were suffering from serious medical conditions, and some apparently were left without water. And so outside of this ranch over the weekend, there were protesters there who say any of the animals that are still left should be removed from this sanctuary.
We've taken about 80 animals out of this place in cooperation with the authorities. All of the animals were either underweight or overweight. They had bumblefoot, staph infections.
But a woman who lives right there in the neighborhood says she visits this farm all the time, and she says from what she can tell that the animals are well taken care of.
I've been out here by myself at times, like in the middle of winter, and worked hard, and every animal's always been fed. I think these allegations are people's opinion.
Yeah, this will all play out in a courtroom in the coming days. 545, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. And here's Justin Alec.
Well, thank you, Noam Layden. I'll start here on the NBA hardwood in Boston. The Knicks fell 118-105 to the Eastern Conference second-place Boston Celtics, dropping to 0-3 against Boston this season. Karl Anthony Towns led New York with 24 points, and Jalen Brunson had 22. The Knicks had whittled a 77-50 third-quarter deficit down to 95-89 on Mikal Bridges' driving basket early in the final quarter before the Celtics went on a 10-0 spree to take control. Coming off a 37-point loss at the Eastern Conference leading Cleveland Cavaliers on Friday, the Knicks fell behind by 27 points after Brown and Tatum hit consecutive threes just 20 seconds apart early in the third quarter. Josh Hart returned after missing the past 2 games with a sore right knee. He offered some solid defense and offensive production in his return, 20 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists. Up next for the Knicks, they'll host the Philadelphia 76ers come Wednesday. Looking ahead to local NBA action tonight, the Nets return to the floor on the road in Washington, getting set for a 7 p.m. tip-off against the Wizards. On the collegiate hardwood, St. John's hammered UConn at home, beating the Huskies 89-75. Kadari Richmond and Zubi Ejiofor led the contest in scoring with 18 apiece, helping the Big East first-place Red Storm improve to 24-4 overall on the year and 15-2 in conference. Coming up next for St. John's, a road date with Butler on Wednesday night. To the NHL and the ice in Pittsburgh, where Adam Fox scored the go-ahead goal at just about the 11-minute mark of the third period. JT Miller had 2 goals, and the Rangers rallied to beat the Penguins 5-3. Will Cooley scored on the power play. Jimmy Vesey added his 100th NHL goal for the Rangers. Igor Sturkin made 30 saves. Miller scored in the first period and added a late empty net goal. Vesey tied it for the Rangers just about 4.5 minutes into the third. Fox, who has a 6-game point streak, put New York ahead just over 7 minutes later. Coming up next for the Blue Shirts, will visit Talmont to face off with the Islanders tomorrow night. Speaking of those Islanders, they lost a tight one 4-3 to the visiting Dallas Stars last night. Jean-Gabriel Pageau appeared to tie it for New York in the closing minutes, but the referee ruled Pierre Engvall interfered with Ottinger, and the goal was disallowed. And finally, in Nashville, Nico Dawes made 29 saves to record his first NHL shutout as the Devils dominated the Predators to the tune of a 5-0 victory. Dougie Hamilton had a goal and an assist. Palat, Casey, Neeson, and Tatar also scored for the Devils, winners of 2 of 3. Up next for them, they'll visit the Colorado Avalanche on Wednesday night. And Louie and I were just discussing before I hopped on the air, Noam Layden, that the Yankees, he reminded me so kindly, will not be playing New York following Yankees losses now this upcoming season in the MLB. They'll be
What's
playing,
that all about?
They'll be playing other Frank Sinatra songs. So one of the examples I saw was That's Life. They might play in the event of a Yankees loss in the Bronx. You know, that's life. Sometimes it kicks you down. You get back up. I think that's...
Were the fans begging for something like this to happen?
Well, it was a little weird. They would lose games, like they lost that World Series game, Game 5. And they started playing New York, after they just, threw away the World Series, basically. That's not very...
I feel like they should find a more depressing song than this to play if they lose.
Oh, come on. That's life.
That's what all the people say.
That's what all the people say.
This might work, actually, now that I'm listening to
lost,
it.
But we're going to be all right. The Yanks might have lost tonight, but we're going to be okay. We're back tomorrow night, Noam. You do get 162 of these damn things.
What's going on in the Bronx? They're letting people grow beards. They're playing different Frank Sinatra songs.
Listen, maybe Hal decided... It's time to,
Get to 2025.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's finally get to 2025.
There we go. You're a loser. I like that.
This one's good, too. There you go. How about that? So, maybe, Yankee Stadium is becoming a little bit more, I guess, to date, if you will.
Lou should pick the loser song for every game that they lose.
That's we're going to do that.
Have a catalog of songs.
That's
As if I don't feel like playing it every day.
Right.
Just kidding.
Let's go, Yanks. Come on, baby. Yeah. Back to you, No.
Traffic, transit now. Some guy who's definitely not a loser. Here's Joel Nolan.
Oh, man. Your New York Yankee baseball. Oh, I can't wait. Anyway, from the RayCantina.com traffic desk. Here we go. Southbound on the Drive, 155th Street accident. One lane out. That continues. Also outbound on the LIE at Main Street, a disabled truck. The 2 right lanes are out of service there, and you got a lot of heavy traffic heading outbound. Then southbound on the BQE, the ramp to the Brooklyn Bridge. Again, that collision continues as well. Now, if you're heading out onto the inbound side of the Long Island Expressway, we're doing pretty well. Just the usual stuff getting in through Queens Boulevard, inbound on the Gowanus BQE, coming away now from almost Industry City all the way up to the Brooklyn Bridge. A lot of heavy and slow traffic. Now, if you're in New Jersey, the only real major difficulty we have is Route 80 still being closed, coming up to exit 34. Everything else seems to be rolling along without much of an issue, at least not right now. Garden State Parkway, Turnpike, all of that looks to be pretty good. Same thing up to the north on the Westchester Parkway, southbound thruway getting up to and over the Tappan Zee. And mass transit-wise now, delays on the 1, the 4, the A, and the E, and alternate side is in effect. Experience the impressive performance of the 2024 Porsche Macan Electric 4 SUV from Porsche Edison. Lease at $849 a month for 39 months, $56.88 due at signing, taxes, fees, extra. Qualified buyers details, PorscheEdison.com. I'm Joe Nolan with traffic on Talk Radio 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:50 over to New Jersey, where Congressman Josh Gottheimer visiting Newark Airport over the weekend to introduce new actions following a rash of air travel incidents this year. The announcement comes as the White House laid off close to 400 Federal Aviation Agency employees earlier in the week.
I'm all for government efficiency. I have a record of that, but not for stupidity. And firing FAA workers is just plain stupid and puts Jersey families and passengers at risk.
Gottheimer says he is now introducing new legislation that would prohibit major staff cuts at the FAA if a fatal crash has occurred within the last year.
I'm announcing new actions to fight back against these FAA cuts to help keep our aviation workers on the job and ensure the safety of our families when they fly.
He's also urging the FAA to fast-track legislation that was approved last year that would deploy advanced safety equipment technology to airports nationwide. 5:51, the Governor Hochul defending her decision over the weekend not to remove Mayor Adams. Hochul says that despite outrage over the Justice Department ordering the dismissal of Adams' corruption charges, she doesn't want to undermine a democratic election.
But I will always stand on the fact that we are a nation of laws, and one individual, the governor of New York, should not use her voice and her will to override the will of the voters.
So instead of using her power to remove a sitting mayor, the governor says she would rather allow this year's mayoral election just to play out.
We have an election in a few months in a primary. I'm going to let the voters decide, but I'm also going to be very cognizant. I need to keep an eye on this situation.
And the governor says she'll resist any attempt by the White House to meddle in New York City politics.
We are not allowing the Trump administration to interfere in the operations of our city.
5:52. He's played many roles: electrician, delivery guy, construction worker, and more. But police say his main role has been a thief.
The NYPD is joining the nationwide manhunt for the serial robber who is dressed in various disguises to commit his crimes. Captain Ryan Gillis leads the NYPD's major case squad.
His name is Yonut Candia. So far, we have records of him in Los Angeles, Chicago, New York City, and Canada as well.
Investigators say he's dressed as a handyman, delivery person, construction worker, and more to get into people's homes. Candia is believed to have gotten away with more than $1.6 million in cash and jewelry in more than 24 separate heists. Larry Kofsky, NBC News Radio.
While we're talking about this story, the NYPD Captain Ryan Gillis says his major case squad is casting a wide net to find this individual.
We are opening our arms to work with whoever has information on him civilians, police departments, and our federal partners alike. The main goal is to catch Yonut Candia and to hold him accountable for the actions he's committed.
5:54, New York City area sports fans have Optimum cable, and now they can watch their teams on TV again.
The blackout of Knicks, Rangers, Devils, and Islanders games to more than 1 million Optimum subscribers is over. MSG Networks and Optimum reached a new agreement. The New York Post reports as part of the deal, MSG will charge Optimum $8 instead of $10 per subscriber. Optimum pulled the plug on the games on January 1st in their dispute with MSG. Earlier this month, Governor Hochul had demanded both sides return to the negotiating table and threatened public hearings, saying sports fans were being shortchanged, paying for games they couldn't watch. Hochul called Saturday's agreement a long overdue step. I'm Lisa Salvati.
A 61-year-old prison inmate in upstate New York has died amid a wildcat strike by corrections officers.
Jonathan Grant was found unresponsive in his cell early Saturday at the maximum security prison in Auburn, New York. The Daily News reports he'd been in prison since August of 2011 on a 34 to 40-year sentence for a rape and burglary conviction in Brooklyn. Officials say a member of the National Guard, which had been sent to the prison because of the strike, as well as medical staff and paramedics, tried without success to revive him. The paper says the cause and circumstances of Grant's death are unknown and under investigation. Larry Kofsky, NBC News Radio.
Some real fear for flyers out of Kennedy Airport yesterday. An American Airlines flight out of New York diverted to Rome over a possible security issue. It was American Airlines flight 292. It had departed JFK, was heading to Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi when they got word that there might be a bomb on board the plane. A senior official briefed on the matter says the bomb threat was received by email but was deemed to be unfounded. But that did not matter. Italian Air Force fighter jets escorted this aircraft to Leonardo da Vinci's Rome airport, where it landed safely. The authorities then went on board to see if there was anything on the plane. They did not find anything. But in New Delhi, they said they weren't going to accept this plane until they had full clearance from the police in Italy. And they did get that. There were 199 passengers on this flight, as well as 15 crew members. Everybody was bussed off the plane. They were screened once again and then sent back on their way to New Delhi. WABC News Time, 5:56. The Yankees changing their infamous facial hair policy.
The team is parting with tradition and will now allow players to have this season. The Yankees have barred players from having facial hair other than a mustache since the 1970s. Managing general partner Hal Steinbrenner said the decision was made after speaking with former and current players. He added, quote, "It's the appropriate time to move beyond the familiar comfort of our former policy." While some other major North American sports teams have policies regarding dress or appearance, the Yankees' beard policy was among the strict and the most well-known. I'm Lisa Carton.